Hello everybody, I hope that you had a wonderful Christmas. I am here to bring you the ultimate wrap-up of all of the books that I read in 2020. I did a poll on my Discord on whether or not this should be something where I do it as series and I combine them all together, but people were mean and they knew that I would have a hard time deliberating about each individual book, and they voted for that, so that's what we're gonna do. Tonight, I am doing something I normally don't do, which is I'm having a Coca-Cola, because I'm going to be doing a lot of video work tonight. And I am tired already, so let's get going. First book on the list is Anne of Avonlea, which honestly, I don't remember which of the books this was. I remember reading 3 of them. I think this was book 2, which I think was my least favorite of all of the books. So I'm going to put it in the alright tier. If I remember, it just wasn't as, I don't know, there was something endearing about Anne as a kid, which is why we have Anne of Green Gables here. But the next one, Anne of Green Gables, is way better than I really expected it to be. It hit me like in all of the feels. I loved the parts that were so cute. It reminded me of being a father, loving my daughter, like seeing that joy and optimism in Anne as a child, as well as like the silliness, the way that her brain works. I loved it so much. Also, if anyone just tells you that book is nothing but happy, there's a part in there that just made me completely ugly cry, and you need to be warned. But it's a good ugly cry, not a bad ugly cry. Next book, Anne of the Island. I feel like if this is the one that I think it is, then it's probably solid, because the best one was definitely the first one. But if I remember correctly, this is the one where we got to still get a lot of that childishness in there. There's another child introduced into the story that brings a lot of great humor that made me laugh, and it was very accurate in my estimation of the way that children think and the way that children talk. Next, Frederick Bachmann's Anxious People. I do have a review for this one on the site. It's my first Frederick Bachmann book that I've ever read. It's going to go in the top of the solid tier. Let's see. There we go. It's going to go in the top of the solid tier. I think this book was funny. I think this book was poignant. I think more people should read this book. It wasn't my favorite overall for this awesome year, but I'm going to put it here in the solid category as number 1. We'll see what happens as we move down the list. Next up with Assassin's Apprentice, which was the first book in the Farseer trilogy. This was a book that I was not fully intending on reading when I did. It has been on my TBR. I was planning on leaving it on my TBR. I am so glad that the people who are on my Patreon voted for this to be the buddy read that we read next, because I really would have put it off longer. Instead, I fell in love with Robin Hobb. This one is actually going to take the top spot in the solid territory. This one isn't the best in the series. It's very good though, and it got me super into Hobb's writing and super into what she was going to do in the future, which we'll talk about when we get there. I guess there is now, because Assassin's Quest is the next book on this list. Now the thing about Assassin's Quest is it's probably, there's really good things about it, but also there's weirder things about it. It's not as tight. There's the weird part at the end, to stay spoiler free, but my headcanon resolves that. I think we're going to put it here for now, and we'll see what happens when I change my mind. Assassin's Quest was a great way to wrap up that trilogy. It has me excited to read more Hobb in the future. I'm going to be starting the Live Ship Traders first thing next year, if all things go according to my plan, and I fully expect to super love that one. I'm going to be making a bunch of buddy read channels on my Discord over for that when we get there. Bloody Rose. Now, Bloody Rose was the second book in the Kings of the Wild series. I think it's called The Band is the name of the series. It was good. It was solid, but it wasn't as good as the first one. It kind of rehashed some of the same points. I didn't care about the characters as much as I did in the first one. It still had a really solid arc. It still had really good moments. I'm still definitely looking forward to the next book in the series, but this one was not my favorite. Breaking Dawn. Now, Breaking Dawn is book 4 of the Twilight series, and I'm going to put this one at the bottom of solid because I had such a good time reading it, even though it's got so many issues. It's got some of the weirdest stuff in Twilight. It's a insane book. I'm going to leave that one at the bottom of solid for now. I may move it down. I'm not sure, because Breaking Dawn it's a trip. Cinder, though. Cinder was really good. I like Cinder way more than I thought I would. Maybe the solid tier is going to be my highest tier here. Cinder was really good. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. Everyone talks about it being a really good young adult series. It's a sci-fi retelling of, just in case you don't know, it's a sci-fi retelling of, well, this one's Cinderella, but they're all different fairy tales. It was cute. It was fun. It was heartwarming. It was light, which was nice at the time that I read it, which is right at the beginning of quarantine. So I think I'm going to put it here. Brandon Sanderson's Dawn Shard. Now, I really liked Dawn Shard. I think that Dawn Shard introduced a lot of crazy elements into the Cosmere. That being said, it is a novella and it is short. It was really good. Let's see. It was really good, but because of its importance in the Cosmere, it's going to have long-lasting things. I think this is a good place to put it. I don't think that's offensive. It's in the solid tier. It's lower in the solid tier. Works for me. Eclipse. Now, Eclipse has some real soap opera drama in a series that's already kind of soap opera drama. Eclipse has really started going bad for Jacob, and that sort of left a bad taste in my mouth. But it also was a fun video to make, and this is about my enjoyment of these series. So, dang it, I really do, I'm gonna put it on solid here, near the end. Edge Dancer. I read Edge Dancer this year. I think that Edge Dancer is not a great Sanderson novella. I do like the character of Lift more than I used to. I've come around to her, but I'm going to put that on the meh- scale because as far as actual super fun, interesting Cosmere revelations, it's not great. The story is a massive side quest. It feels like a massive side quest. For what it is, it still feels overly long, so I'm going to leave that there. I also think that I reflected that as like a 3-star in my Goodreads review, if I remember correctly. Elantris. Elantris is solid. I'm going to put that down here in the solid territory. How about right here? As Sanderson's first work, there's definitely, I don't know, it's not as well paced. The Sander Lynch is still really awesome. There's still really cool things in it, but it's definitely not the best work we've seen from Sanderson. And I read most of the Cosmere this year. Full Moon. Now, the weird thing about Full Moon is there's some stuff in Full Moon that I absolutely don't like, but for some reason, Full Moon is the Dresden book that I remember the most. And I liked Grave Peril a lot more when I read it, but for some reason, this one sticks in my head. How about we leave it on the all right here? I definitely remember it. It was kind of fun. All right. Gone Girl. I'm going to put Gone Girl, as far as things that are going to stick with me, I think I'm going to put Gone Girl here. I just finished that for the Secret Santa buddy read thing, and that book was a trip. I did make a review for that. That's on the channel as well. I wasn't spoiled going into it. It's one of those big things that everybody saw because it was a movie too, but I didn't have anything spoiled for me, so that one was awesome for me. The amount of twists that happen in that book, I can't spoil it. Cool plot devices in Gone Girl is good. I am interested in more Gillian Flynn. People were talking about other Gillian Flynn books that they liked in the comments for that video, and I am interested in reading more of them. So thank you for that. Continue to suggest those as you see fit. Grave Peril in the Dresden books. I think I'm going to put that at the end of solid right now. I know that this is stacking up, but I really did enjoy this one. I think this is the best of the Dresden books that I've read so far. Unfortunately, it's the last one that I read. I don't know how that panned out this way, but I do want to continue with that series for sure. As you can see in the video that I made about continuing series in 2021. Yeah, that's what year is going to be. But I think this introduced elements that go beyond just this book. So we're starting to expand that world a little bit. Gonna put that there. Now, Illuminate. Put it in the screw it category. This is a book that when I read it, it was a 3-star. But the longer I go and the more that I thought about it, the more I didn't like the writing. I thought the story was kind of I didn't like the characters, didn't like the writing. The character that I think I'm supposed to like the most, I'm like, nah, screw that. I don't like that type of humor. I don't like that type of plot device. I'm thinking maybe I don't like Jay Kristoff's writing because I've looked at other things that Jay Kristoff has written and I'm not a fan. I have mixed results on people telling me that I would like Aurora Rising or not like Aurora Rising, so I'm curious. Maybe if it's cheap enough, I'll check it out. I have friends that love this series as well as the Aurora Rising series. I know people that like Nevernight. I don't think I would like Nevernight at all. And honestly, I read this and was like, no, I don't want to read the rest of these. And then when I found out they were basically retellings of the same event from different characters' perspective, I said, no, screw this. So screw it. Jade City. Jade City was a lot of fun. If I'm comparing it to my recent reads, as well as the reads that are on this list, I'm gonna put Jade City. Well, dang, now that I'm rearranging this stuff, if I'm talking about the way that I enjoy it, I'm going to put Jade City here, and I'm going to have to move Twilight up, because I really didn't like those books more than Anne of the Island. I like Jade City more than Grave Peril. There. That's going to be the new whatever. Kings of the Wild for me was a fun read. There's a lot of juvenile humor, which can make me laugh. There were some legitimately heartfelt moments. This is not a book for everybody. It is a very weird tone for a fantasy book. I also enjoyed the music references. I enjoyed like the sort of world that we're in with that one. I'm going to leave that down at the bottom of solid. I think I have a review for that book. I may not have a review for that book. Back in the day, I used to read more books on the channel, and I couldn't review every single one of them because, you know, I read more books. Now that I read like 3 books a month, I tend to just review them all. Leviathan Wakes. I very much enjoyed Leviathan Wakes. I want to continue with that series. It didn't prompt me to continue. Like, I didn't feel any necessary urge to continue along right away, so I'm gonna put that on the solid tier. Above Grave Peril, I think I enjoyed Grave Peril more. Unfortunately, I think it might be one of the very few sci-fi books that I read this year. And yeah, looking at this list, it's one of the only sci-fi books that I read this year, but I think I'm still gonna leave it at the bottom of the solid territory. Malice. I liked Malice quite a bit. I haven't continued with that series, but I know that I'm supposed to. This book is actually the first book that I've ever had someone send me. Leslie Smith over at the channel The Nerdy Narrative sent me this book because she was obsessed with that series. She says the second book in the series is where it's really at, so I need to get to Valor, I believe is what it's called. For me, Malice was a very solid, like, retread over familiar ground. You know what? Let's see. Oh, frick. I think we're gonna move Anne back down some more to here. Anne just keeps getting moved. I think this is where it belongs, though. Midnight Sun was solid. I believe I gave this book 5 stars. It was a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna put Midnight Sun here. It was a long version of What's Inside Edward's Head, which means what's inside everyone's head because Edward has mind control powers. It was a retelling of Twilight, but it reframed the context that we see Edward in to kind of make him worse. And to reframe the context of Bella to kind of make her better, which is something that I never would have expected in a million years after reading Twilight. But there was a lot more humor, and it made me like Bella. It made me go, oh, this is why a character would like Bella. She's actually funny, she's charming, she's cool, she's compassionate. I thought that was a really, really cool way. I think this is a wonderful way to sort of retcon the series because we're looking at these from the perspective of characters that are definitely unreliable narrators in their own story. I think Midnight Sun is honestly kind of brilliant, but I think this is where it goes as far as actual enjoyment now that I'm looking back at everything. Mistborn, the first book in the Final Empire. How about we put it... No, there. I think, right there. Did I enjoy it more than Dawnshard? Did I enjoy it more than Twilight? I enjoyed the end of it more than Twilight, but I think this is where I'm gonna put this one, because frankly, I did love it. I think that there's awesome things about the Cosmere, and I think there's awesome characters in this book, but also there were, I don't know, it didn't flow as much as I wanted it to. Maybe the writing, I was just used to Stormlight writing, and it wasn't as good in Mistborn. This was an earlier work. I think it's all of these books in the solid tier, by the way, I just love. So I don't want people to get mad at this, and they're gonna be like, you rated Twilight above Mistborn. I had more fun, actual fun, reading Twilight, making the Twilight videos than I did Mistborn. Moving on. This is I believe it's called My Life is a Smashed Burrito with Extra Hot Sauce, which is the first book in the Wally McDougal series, which is a middle grade series that I read as a kid about this dorky wannabe author. And this was the book that I suggested for middle grade March. I'm gonna put this one probably here, because it was fun to reread. I got a little bit of nostalgia. I think I talked about this before, but this is actually a book that was written and they've modernized it, this is the first time I've ever seen something like this, but maybe I'm a curmudgeonly old man. It just rubbed me the wrong way. It used to be like implementing the tech at the time. So like there was a character with a laptop and the laptop was described kind of as old. There was like, I don't think Wi-Fi existed when that book was written. So I feel like there's Wi-Fi references. I know that there was a character that used to use a Walkman, like a tape player Walkman, like, you know, back in the day, and now they're using an MP3 player. Like, just weird references like that rub me the wrong way. I get it, you're trying to make it work for kids these days, but also, I don't know, I'm gonna put it there. New Moon. Okay, now the thing about New Moon is that it's known for being ridiculously emo, but I kind of like that about it, and I like the ridiculous cheeseball factor. I like that this is Jacob's good book. I think I'm gonna put New Moon above or below Midnight Sun. It depends on the day. It gives me some serious feels. There's that section of the book where Bella is sad, and it skips like 3 months and 3 pages, and it's such a mood. So I guess we'll put it here. Oathbringer for me, oh man. Oathbringer for me is gonna be here, we'll say. I think Oathbringer's too long. I think there's some filler parts, but dang, I still love this book, and it has some of my favorite moments in the Stormlight Archive. I think that conclusion and that epic battle drops so many bombs that I just read the entire last chunk of this book, which is a massive chunk of book in a single sitting. I've revisited it with Stormlong 2020. I love Oathbringer so much. Gonna put it here. Prince Caspian. You know what? I love the Chronicles of Narnia. I talk about how much I love the Chronicles of Narnia all the time. I did a reread of this book the beginning of this year with Narnia. I think it was called Narnia Along or Narnia Read Along. Mystery Date with a Book was hosting that at the beginning of the year. But Prince Caspian, screw it. I think this book is not great. Very little happens. There's some funny stuff that happens in it. But I feel like there's 2 parades in this book. And 2 parades is too much for any book. Rhythm of War is definitely a booyah book. I'm going to put it here. Do I like Rhythm of War more than Anne of Green Gables? I mean, I feel like I should probably do that. I love Anne of Green Gables. The booyah tier is my, like, these are probably favorite books of all time list. I think I'm going to put Rhythm of War there for sure. Royal Assassin. Also a book that's going to be on my booyah tier because Royal Assassin, everything that Assassin's Apprentice was, Royal Assassin was that times 10. It was so much better. I love this is like where I really fell in love with Robin Hobb. This is where I really fell in love with Fitz as a character. Everything about this book is wonderful except for the fact that it just beat me down and made me so sad, but in the best way where I couldn't stop. There was a moment in this book where I'm driving to work and I ugly cried and I had to take my time going in because I did not want my face to be all red because dang, but it's sad in the best way. I love Fitz. Even when Fitz is the character that you love, even when he's making bad decisions, because Robin Hobb writes him so well. And the way that she interweaves all of the different conflicting emotions of the different characters is just unparalleled in my opinion. I freaking love Royal Assassin. I don't know if I'm going to leave it here, but we'll leave Royal Assassin as number 1 here. Rhythm of War was awesome. Trust me, Rhythm of War was awesome. Royal Assassin. Dang, son. Scarlet, the second book in this Cinder story. I really liked Scarlet too. It's going to be hard to call where I put these ones because I sort of think of them as being a little bit the same, but I'm going to go to my default. My default is always to assume that the first book in the series is the best one because oftentimes I associate a lot of the good feelings with the book with being introduced into that world. Scarlet's a great book. Cinder's a great book. All right, Scythe. I really liked Scythe. The first book was a solid 5-star for me. I liked it quite a bit. We'll put it here. I think Scythe was a great book. I think that it almost works as a standalone. I think that it introduces characters in a fun way. I like the way that it ended. If you want to see a contrasting review, Daniel Green was not a big fan of Scythe, but I was. I think it was a good implementation of a young adult storyline. It wasn't too dark, but it was dealing with dark themes. It still brought up a lot of interesting philosophical questions. It had an interesting villain and premise at the beginning. I think that there were some wild moments that happened in that book. We'll see what happens with that series as we continue. 6 of Crows. I thought 6 of Crows was also very good. Honestly, when I'm thinking about 6 of Crows on this list, with the feelings that I feel about it now, I'm going to put it here. I think that's where it belongs. I never read the second book in this duology. I really need to. The only thing that I will say negatively about 6 of Crows is that it doesn't really end. This is like definitely... Instead of feeling like a book where it's like, oh, we left you a cliffhanger to see where the next one goes, it feels like somebody took a full book, which this may have happened, I don't know, took a full book, just ripped it in half and said here. And it's like, well, the plot wasn't really done. Like, none of it really wrapped up, but I guess this is where we're ending it. That's a negative, but also, like, it should have driven me to read the next book, but I haven't. Dang, this is hard. Skyward. Okay, Skyward. Skyward is a very good book. I really enjoyed it. So where am I gonna put it on the solid list? It definitely doesn't go on my booyah chart. I love Spence as a character. I love being introduced into this world. I love that it goes places I did not think it was gonna go. How about here? No. Well, if we're talking about what I want to read more, do I care more about reading Valor or the third book in... I don't know if that's a fair comparison or not. Why did you people make me do this? Why are you making me do it by individual book instead of series? That was very mean of you. Starsight. I didn't like it as much as Skyward. How about here? Sure. That feels right to me. I really liked Anne of the Island. Scythe. Should I move Anne down again? I think I liked all of these more than these 3. Stormfront. The alright tier. How about there? Bottom of the all right tier. Ted Chiang's Stories of Our Life and Others. I think that these were meh minus. I definitely think that there were interesting concepts explained, but short stories may not be my thing. I don't know. I enjoyed the one short story in this thing that was turned into the movie Arrival with Amy Adams and Hawkeye from the Marvel movies. I think that was an awesome short story. I think there were some other interesting concepts, but in general, I didn't love this short story collection. The Book of Boy, I'm going to call this one also a meh minus. So the Book of Boy was the middle grade March, like designated full buddy read pick. And I actually think the premise for that book is kind of awesome, which is like there's a boy who's been like rejected. He's basically used as a shepherd slave. And this stranger comes along and basically recruits him for this quest to go, I guess it's kind of spoilers, but it's also kind of set up. They're going to steal the relics of a bunch of important like Christian heroes to try to accomplish a task. And it's actually an extremely dark story. I think that you could retell a story like this in a like Dark Soulsian fashion if you're in video games like Bloodborne or whatever, and it would be amazing and dark and gothic and gritty and gross, but instead it was a weird book that didn't find a very good tone, in my opinion. It wasn't awful, but meh minus is definitely what it was. The Dragon Reborn. How about we... Oh, dang. I liked that one a lot, but where do I put it on this list? I liked The Dragon Reborn. I don't think it was quite as good as The Great Hunt, but we did get to see some Matt in here. How about there? The Dragon Reborn did a little bit of annoying things, which was like, I guess I can't go into spoilers. The Dragon Reborn did some things that I didn't love, but it also was still more fun and better paced than some of the other things that I've read. The Great Hunt has been my favorite of the Robert Jordan books so far. I think those are the only two that I read this year, because I think I read Idleworld last year. I really enjoyed the pacing in The Great Hunt, but I also don't remember as much about it. Let's put The Great Hunt there. That's been my favorite so far, just because the pacing was wall to wall. There was a lot of really cool epic things that happened. We got a lot of cool magic-y, stuff in that one. All right, Hero of Ages, the third book in, what was that series called? Mistborn. The third book in Mistborn, this was my favorite of the Mistborn books, so I need to put it at least as high as The Final Empire. We'll probably put it... Did I like Hero of Ages more than The Great Hunt? Absolutely. I really liked this one. How about... Did I like it more than Assassin's Quest? Yes. Did I like it more than Oathbringer? Yes. Did I like it more than Assassin's Apprentice? Yes. We'll put Hero of Ages on the top of my solid category. That's where it's going to go. The Horse and His Boy. As far as Narnia books go, it's not my favorite, but it's pretty good. This is the one that has a little bit of kind of racist-y things, but it also has interesting characters. It's an interesting setup because it doesn't use the regular characters from the series. Where would I put The Horse and His Boy? Right there. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now here is something that I'm going to have to separate this book from the context in which I read it, because I don't like this book. I think that this book is a classic that's way too long and could seriously use an editor. I think if you read this book abridged, you would miss absolutely nothing. And you could just cut out a significant chunk of this book. However, I had a ton of fun reading this with Christy Lewis, Dostoevsky in Space. She has a reading group, and this was like the first book that we read together. I also had the experience of having a French booktuber, Melanie Frenchy Reader. I will link her channel down below. She was involved with this. She's been there, and she helped sort of translate some of the complicated stuff and help us understand some of this stuff. Plus, she's just an awesome booktuber. So the experience of reading this book was awesome. I did not particularly like this book. The Last Battle of Narnia is so sad. I guess I won't spoil it in case you haven't read this book, but the older I get, the more I think it's really poignant. Oh man, The Last Battle is such a sad book, but it is good. I like it more than I used to. Do I like it more than Skyward? I don't know. It's so iconic in my brain though. Where does it belong? Frick. Here, I guess. Dang it! This is so hard! Why'd you make me do this? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's a classic. It's not my favorite, though. I actually think it's one of the least interesting. There's the whole, like, wardrobe part is cool, but also the story is not my favorite. Is it better than The Horse and His Boy? Yes. Is it better than Scythe? The first time I read it, or this time I read it? How about right now? The way I feel about it right now. How about there? Did I like it more than Starsight, though? Yes. The Magician's Nephew. Listen, people. I love The Magician's Nephew. This book is one of my favorite books. It's probably... This one and Voyage of the Dawn Treader are my favorite. I'm going to go ahead and grab Voyage of the Dawn Treader now and talk about them. So Voyage of the Dawn Treader and The Magician's Nephew are like some of my favorite books of all time. They're in the Narnia series. Magician's Nephew constantly blows my mind. I can't decide if it or Voyage are my favorite. It depends on the day and it depends on the part of the book. Voyage of the Dawn Treader is more episodic, but each episode is awesome and mystical and whimsical. The Magician's Nephew has some of my favorite crap in the entire world of fantasy in it. They have to be on my Booyah tier. We're going to do this for now. I mean, if we're talking about just books that I love iconically, it's going to go more like this. But Rhythm of War is a better book in a lot of ways. And also, Rhythm of War, it's hard because Rhythm of War leaves me wanting so much more. But those books are, I'm going to leave it like this. Frick, I hate this. The Memory Police, I didn't love this one either. It was like a metaphor, but it wasn't a great, like you couldn't, the book felt like it was an allegory for something or that it was a metaphor for something, but none of the solutions that I could come up with, it actually fit into any of those. It also was like too short. It was a bad mixture of something that was supposed to be a regular story and something that was supposed to be a metaphor and teach a lesson. And instead it tried to do a weird middle ground, like a Tim Burton movie. Hey, unpopular opinion, I think Tim Burton movies are generally bad because they strike a bad balance of being creepy and weird and funny. They're right in the middle. It's not very funny. It's not very creepy. That's the Memory Police in my brain. Only whatever. The original, the Brandon Sanderson, Mary Robinette Kowal book. It was an audiobook only. It wasn't actually a regular book. I think this was really cool. It was 3 hours long. I was left wanting more. How about right above The Horse and His Boy? That was a great one. I do want to see more in that world. I can't remember if Brandon said that we're getting more of that in The Way of Sanderson or not, but I think we may. All right, we're on the last row of books that we need to rank here on this table. Next up, The Poppy War. I have a review for this on the site. I'm not a very big fan of it. I'm going to give it a meh minus and put it right here. I think the book was totally all over the place. I think the characters were like not good, not because they weren't likable. I think that there's lots of books where I don't like the characters, or like I like the characters, but I know they're supposed to be unlikable. This book I really did not like it. I feel like my review that I gave it was very fair, so I'll stick with that and leave this book down here. Oh, The Rage of Dragons, where do I put that? It was more fun than most of these books. There's some really awesome stuff in The Rage of Dragons. It's like a revenge story, but it has some really killer stuff in it. I'm going to put it up pretty high, actually. Looking at these books. Put The Rage of Dragons... Was The Rage of Dragons better than Assassin's Quest? Yes. I need to move Assassin's Quest down, maybe. I don't know. We'll put The Rage of Dragons there. It's got some killer, awesome action, wall-to-wall fighting, awesome character development, next level training and like ways to ramp up a character from going to like 0 to hero, but like instead of hero he's just revenge master. We'll leave it there. Stephen King's The Shining. I did not like this book as much as I wish I would have. It was fun, but it was also one of those books that everything I think since this book has like been inspired by this book, so it felt well worn even if it was something that inspired a lot of these things. Where did I put it on this list? Probably here. Maybe, yeah. That works. The Silver Chair is one of the better Narnia books. It's one of my favorite Narnia books as well. I'm gonna put it up. Dang it. How about here? It's iconic in my brain. I have a hard time sometimes separating books that I really, 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 really love from like they've been inspirational to me as a story reader, story creator in some instances. The Silver Chair is just burned into my brain. And this is getting very hard, and screw all of y'all who voted that I need to do every individual book because this is hurting my soul to do. The Sundown Motel it was either bottom. No, it was better than this. I read it in one day. It was very enjoyable. It was not what I wanted it to be. It was, I don't want to say it's completely forgettable because I remember some things about it. I think we'll just say meh minus is where it belongs. Sword of Kaigen is a Booyah book. This book is absolutely wonderful. I have a review gushing about it. It has like amazing moments and characters, and I don't know where to put it because overall it's not as good as Rhythm of War from start to finish. The moments of Sword of Kaigen that are amazing to me are like the best moments of this year, I think. So, The Toll, screw it, dude. I did not like the ending of this book. Is this the third one or the second one? This is the final one. The way that this series went has just really gone bad in my mind. I think I'm gonna put this one here. I want to read more Schusterman books. I think he writes interesting stories. I was invested when I read them. I read them quite fast, back to back, and I was interested in them. I gave it a positive review, which is on this channel, but over time, my thoughts have soured the more that I thought about those books. Nevermore was a wonderful fantasy that I read for middle grade March. It was very whimsical. It was very wonderful. It's supposed to scratch that Harry Potter sort of itch. I think that it was great. I think that it was solid. I think that it's going to be the lowest on my list. Middle grade is not my favorite, with the exception of Narnia, which is burned into my brain as being something completely separate. I think this is where it belongs. Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. If I'm being honest, this is what I tell people my favorite book is. Does it mean that it has all the best moments in the franchise? Does it mean it's paced the best of all the books in the franchise? No to both of those things, but it's the thing that introduces me to these characters and this world in such a way that was so evocative, and it got me into the Stormlight Archive. That ending is amazing. The Way of Kings is probably what I tell people my favorite book of all time is right now. I said that in the review. That part's still true. It's a wonderful book, and I've been blessed to read so much of the Cosmere this year, but this is the book that stands above all of them. I absolutely freaking love it. I love the world building. I love the mystery, where there's so much mystery going on at that point. Like the point where we are with Rhythm of War, there's so many other awesome things that are happening, and there's so much like crazy, interesting developments that we're getting, and there's all this like Cosmere intertwining stuff. The Way of Kings, I want to say that it was back when I was simple and naive, and everything was just hitting me, and it was the first time, and I was so immersed. I read this book when I was like staying up late, listening to the audiobook while I'm rocking my baby who was born at the beginning of this year, and yeah, The Way of Kings, we're going to put that at the top there. The Well of Ascension, I think this is awesome. To me, it wasn't as awesome as some of these. We'll put the Well of Ascension here. These are all amazing books. That's why this is so hard. You can tell I'm getting frustrated because this is an insanely difficult process for me. Thunderhead. Screw it. That's where everything in this series started going real funky. No, put that in the back. Where everything in this series started going real stupid for me. It has my least favorite trope done in my like least favorite implementation. I hate it so much. If you ever want to ask me about it, I'll answer in the comments down below. Speaking of screw it, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, people, is not a good book. It really is not a good book. I have a review for it up on my channel. I don't remember what I said. I didn't think it was a rant review, but I've had people tell me since it came out that it's a rant review. I did not like this book, and I've continued only to grow to dislike it more as time has gone on, and I am like, I want to give Paladin another shot because I did love the Aragon series growing up, but maybe I should reread the Aragon series and see if I still like that now, because pretty much every element of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, almost every element I didn't like. Yeah, we'll end it there. I don't want to be super, super negative. Twilight. I love this book. It was wonderful. It was so much more than I expected it to be. It brought me on this wonderful journey of, how about here? It brought me on this wonderful journey that was the Twilight video series that I made. There's a playlist available on my channel. It's buck wild. Is it like got so many problems? Yes, but also I think it does exactly what it tries to do in like a perfect way. Warbreaker. Warbreaker is a great entry in the Cosmere. Do I like it more than Elantris? Probably, but I argue this a lot. Do I like it more than Anxious People? I don't freaking know, because how do you compare Anxious People to Warbreaker? That's an impossible thing to do. Tier lists are hard. I am a person that loves Warbreaker. When I read them both, I thought the Elantris ending was better, but Warbreaker is better as a whole. But I also love the characters in Elantris. They're all great. Words of Radiance is an amazing book that I'm going to put on this list here, because I don't know where else the frick I'm supposed to put it, because these are all wonderful books. This is what you made me do. This is the ranking of all of the books that I read this year in order from top to bottom. If this is what you wanted from me, would I stand by this in a court of law? No. Would I stand by this if you put a gun to my head? No. Would I stand by this if you asked me this question tomorrow? What are the odds? If you asked me this question tomorrow, I would line up this exact same list. The tiers would be the same, I think. but the book order probably wouldn't because it changes a lot. I'm a fluid person, but at least the tiers are the same. These are the books that I loved. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you have comments on any of the mistakes that I probably made here, comment those down below. If you think that I've contradicted myself in some way, please let me know. Just rip it apart, please. Is there anything here that you think is extremely egregious? Did you love To Sleep in a Sea of Stars? Did you hate The Way of Kings? Feel free to share your thoughts. People's opinions are all valid here. If you'd like to support this channel financially, there's a Patreon link down below, as well as a link to a merch store where I have dumb shirts that you could buy. As much as 2020 was what 2020 was, this was an amazing reading year for me. These are some freaking awesome books that I love so much, and I am ready to go into 2021 full of excitement and wonder. So friends, family, countrymen, I hope to see you again soon. I love you all. Goodbye. Should odd acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should odd acquaintance be forgot